Your CraftBox episode for January 22nd. Today we're looking at a feature story in New York Times Magazine written by Leslie Jamison. She was pretty famous for a book of essays called The Empathy Exams that she published a couple years ago. And she's thought to be quite a talented essayist. So when I saw that she had written something for the New York Times Magazine, I was like, whoa, this is going to be good. And interestingly enough, the piece is actually about anger that women in America are feeling currently. It's called I Used to Insist I Didn't Get Angry, Not Anymore, on Female Rage. It was published on January 17th. So we're going to chat a little bit about this. It's kind of come at an interesting time in America in that we are at 1 year in since President Trump's inauguration, and there's a second march being held by women, the second Women's March being held. So all of that was the sort of occasion for this piece. And she sort of discusses the perceptions of women when they're angry. Interestingly enough, she's discovered quite a bit of research on this. And that's what I wanted to highlight about her piece, is about how she weaves in multiple sources of research until you start to feel like these sources all coming up with similar conclusions are actually quite compelling. So we're going to take a look at where she starts discussing the research. It's in this section here. I'll get it a little bigger for us. Okay. The phenomenon of female anger has often been turned against itself. The figure of the angry woman reframed as threat. Not the one who has been harmed, but the one bent on harming. She conjures a lineage of threatening archetypes: the harpy and her talons, the witch and her spells, the Medusa and her writhing locks. The notion that female anger is unnatural or destructive is learned young. Children report perceiving displays of anger as more acceptable from boys than from girls. So I want to just take a short pause here and take a look at this transition that she's made. She's about to start to discuss studies. She says, according to a review of studies of gender. But before she does, she sort of surveys the field. And I think that often people ask me when they're writing papers where they're incorporating research from multiple sources, how do they begin to introduce the research? And she's done it here by kind of taking a look at the society that surrounds her and the literature that people are reading, the images of angry women that she's finding in stories, in media, and she's starting to think about the source of this anger, and that it's something, our perceptions of female anger occur when we're quite young. So there's a way here that she's kind of surveyed the land, and she, with this whole sentence about threatening archetypes, the harpy and her talons, the witch and her spell, the Medusa and her writhing locks. So that's kind of, she's going to be putting some science behind this, but she sort of introduces the science to us by sort of showing us how this science is appearing all around us in our stories that we hear when we're young. And then she just launches right into it. According to a review of studies of gender and anger written in 2000 by Anne M. Kring, a psychology professor at the University of California, Berkeley. So this is an ideal way to kind of bring somebody new into the conversation. This professor Kring is we're gonna be talking about her study. First, we identify what the review was about, the year it was published, who it is, where that person works, and we just do all of that as a phrase with according to at the beginning, and then we hear what the research says. Men and women self-report anger episodes with comparable degrees of frequency, but women report experiencing more shame and embarrassment in their aftermath. So she kind of discusses how actually both genders are just as angry. It's just that women are experiencing more embarrassment and shame about their anger. So then she's going to continue. People are more likely to use words like bitchy and hostile to describe female anger, while male anger is more likely to be described as strong. Kring reported that men are more likely to express their anger by physically assaulting objects or verbally attacking other people, while women are more likely to cry when they get angry, as if their bodies are forcibly returning them to the appearance of the emotion sadness, with which they are most commonly associated. So it seems that, she's presenting research to us that shows that people's perception of anger is different. Women are expressing anger differently, and that when they do feel angry, they are feeling a whole range of emotions around anger that aren't necessarily the same ones that men are feeling. She's going to go forward and she's going to talk about some more studies. But the main sort of writer's tool that we really want to focus on here is this transition where she kind of surveys the land, talking about how all of this appears in literature, in life. Then she brings up the important details about the author and all of the author's research. So it's this kind of 1-2 combination of what do we see in our everyday observations, what do we see in the stories that we're told when we're young, what do we see in movies and literature, and how does that end up having an impact when science looks at it on how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about our own emotions. So it's a very powerful move that she's making by starting with something we all know and taking it to a deeper level using the science. So if you're ever doing a research paper and you're wondering how you're going to bring up the research, I would try this technique. All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on CraftBox.